Yes, I guess so.
55 people. Okay, so I'm going to start. Lauren is, I know you can't talk, but I just heard the thing that said recording in progress, but I didn't actually see any notification of it. So I'll just announce that it's being recorded. So, okay. Let's see if I can set this up. Okay, so set my own screen so I can see as many of you as possible. I'm really glad to see so many people here for this tonight. I want to ask before we start if everybody has the accessibility they need. Are they able to see the captions on the screen? Good. I see lots of thumbs up. That's great. I don't see any thumbs down. And that may be because the person doesn't hear my message, but put it into the, if you're having trouble, put it into the chat. Once we get started, it's hard to adjust the captions though. We also have the ability to get the captions by stream text, which means that they appear in a different window. They're much more visible than the captions on the screen. They have better contrast and color, and they're bigger. So if anyone needs stream text, the link to that is in the chat already. It's right at the top. It's the very first item in the chat. You can see the captions, I think most of you by now, as 2 lines at a time. That's how I'm seeing them. Or you can see them as full transcript, which gives you a larger view of what is being said. I'm not sure if that works on screen text too, but the meeting will be recorded. So if anyone does not want to be recorded, this is your time to leave. And it'll be available on our website in a few weeks. It takes a few weeks to put it up with the captions embedded. The website, as you probably know, is hearinglossnyc.org. When you want to make a comment, would you please go to the bottom of your screen? Actually, if everybody could just take their cursor to the bottom of the screen right now, I'll go across it and say what we need to know. Far left is the mute button, and I see most of you are muted. Those who aren't, would you please mute yourselves? You just click on that little microphone and then it'll have a slash through. Right next to that, it says stop video. If you are not visible, there's a slash through stop video. And because this is kind of a tricky meeting, it's usually a more intimate group in person. And I think if we all could see each other's faces, or as many as are there and available, and don't have some other reason why you don't want to be seen, if you would click on video so we can see who you are. If when you want to speak, go towards the right where you'll see reactions and click on that. Oh, that's something that's changed in Zoom since I've last used it. All right, click on the little arrow and it says recognize hand gestures. Not quite sure what this means, so this is not a good time to be finding this out. But go on to reactions and just recognize hand gestures. I guess, actually, would somebody mind trying that now? Holly, could you ask a question? Could you raise your hand? Okay, that works. Whatever you did, do you want to say what you did? Did you just click on it?
Yeah, it said actually when I clicked on reactions, there was 2 bars and the clapping and the thumbs up. I didn't see that before, but I see it now. So clicking on reactions, there's the at the bottom of the screen, it says either raise hand or now I'm putting lower hand and then it takes the hand off. So just go on reactions.
Okay, I'm not seeing it that way.
Oh, you know what it is, Catherine? If you go on the arrow, all you see is recognize hand gestures. If you click on the image right above the word reactions, that's where it all is.
Okay, thank you. Did everybody get that? You click on the word reactions and then raise your hand. I'll see a little row of raised hands on the top and I will call on you each in turn. When you finish speaking, if you can go back on that big icon and click on lower hand, then we won't get confused about who's waiting to speak. And the first, the other thing on that bottom line is the chat, which most of you know about. I think if you want to see the chat, click on it. If it's in your way, you can just shove your whole screen over to the right and get it out of the way. I would like if everybody could mute themselves until they speak, because it makes it much harder for us to hear. And I would like it if we can have the videos turned on so I can see everybody and we can all see each other. So we're going to start tonight. First, we're going to have 3 short polls because we have quite a few people here. And I thought it would be a good idea if we had a sense of where we are in general with our hearing loss journey. So these are about, David's going to put these up on the screen. And if you would answer each of them, he'll get an instant response, and then we'll go on from there. So David, do you want to put the polls up? Are you still getting answers?
Slowly, 94%. Every time I think,
One question only.
no, we're doing it one at a time, Jerry. Okay, good. I got it.
So David, repeat the poll finding.
Yeah, can we share the results? Is it coming
Okay.
through?
Yeah.
We're all pretty much veterans. Okay, thank you. All right, let's do the second one.
Okay. Polls.
Okay.
Okay, I'm gonna close it now, unless somebody tells me to stop. Oh, no, got another vote. Okay. All right, ending it. I have to say, I'm impressed. This is faster than I expected people to say.
I am impressed too. Okay, let's do the last one.
Okay. Okay, I'm gonna close it in a moment unless somebody tells me otherwise.
The last one, you never put it up.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'll do that in a second. Okay.
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 Oh, you did. I'm sorry, you did put it up. I forgot. Okay.
Okay.
You can close it and give us the results.
Okay, you have, now I'm sorry.
81%. Great. Okay, thank you,
Great.
David.
All right.
We're
Great.
really an admirable group of people, and I think we should all congratulate ourselves. This is terrific. So I think this also is a gives us a little bit of basis for this meeting, which is basically an interactive meeting. And I'll just tell you a little bit about the background of it. When we used to meet in person, it was always very hard to get a speaker in January because the weather was so I mean, half the time our speaker wasn't able to show up. So we started having a meeting that was just us. And I think we embarrassingly called it a rap session back in the early days. And it was a really interesting meeting to have because I think we all got to know each other a little bit better. And we've tried to keep it up on Zoom. It's a little trickier, but I think it's still worth doing. I really like this meeting because I think it takes us back to the origins of HLAA, which before it was HLAA, as many of you know, and many of you were part of it, it was SHHH, which is self-help for the hard of hearing. So I think, this meeting kind of takes us back to our roots as SHHH. It's harder to do this online, but I think we can. I think we can manage it. I want to start by asking you to think about 3 different questions, and then I hope you can focus your comments more or less on in these 3 areas. Please try to keep your comments positive. If you've had a bad experience, if you can, tell us how you dealt with it. We all know that sometimes a bad experience is a bad experience and there's nothing you can do about it. But for the most part, we'd like this meeting to focus on self-help and sharing tips. So we ask that you keep your remarks to 2 minutes. And because there's so many of us, I'm actually going to pretty much cut you off at 2 minutes. And at the same time, I ask you to talk slowly. So this is a little challenge, but we have a large group here and we want to give as many people as we can a chance to talk. So here are the things I want you to think about. What was the biggest challenge you faced with your hearing loss and how did you overcome it? Have you made mistakes in your hearing journey, a term that I'm accepting, and how did you correct those mistakes? Third is, where have you encountered the most obstacles in terms of accessibility? And how have you tried to correct for that? And fourth, and I might wait just till the end to get to this one, but fourth, I'd like to hear from people whether their hearing loss has led to unexpected rewards in their lives. I think it definitely has in mine, and so I hope we'll have a chance to talk about that. So, okay, so the raised hand is on the bottom on the far left, and I see one hand raised already. So, Rosalie, you can start.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm Rosalie. I'm happy to be here with all of you. I actually came on to HLAA during the pandemic, and it's been quite helpful for me with my hearing loss and my struggles. To answer your first question, my biggest struggle has been the pandemic, especially with the masks. And, thank goodness that I don't wear the mask anymore. So for the most part, it's fine, except when I go to the doctor's office, which is a real struggle. I usually leave the doctor's office and I rip that mask off my face because I'm frustrated because I can't hear the doctor. But the one thing that, so that's been my biggest challenge, but the way I was able to correct it for the most part is I do advocate for myself and I speak up much more than I used to. The first thing I do when I go to the doctor's office, if it's a new doctor, I tell them I'm hearing impaired. You're going to have to speak up or you're going to have to stay 6 feet away from me and lower your mask. And for the most part, everybody's compliant and, it creates a better situation for me. But I found that the most helpful thing, and I read the book that was put out by 2 of the people that are on this committee, and it helped me tremendously because I have been advocating for myself much more. Like just recently, I had gone to a restaurant and I was the first person to arrive and the music was really loud. And I went up to the manager and I said, listen, I'm hearing impaired. Is there anything you could do to lower that music? Because I won't be able to hear my guests. And he was like, oh, absolutely. Thank you so much for bringing us to that end. So it was great because, if I didn't do that, I would have been miserable the whole night because the music would have been too loud. The atmosphere would have been too loud. So that's the best thing that I could do. I mean, I struggle with my hearing loss tremendously, especially because I am a young person and I'm very social. I go out a lot, and it's a struggle because, you know, when I go to parties, when I go to loud places, it's extremely challenging. I force myself to go, but there are times when I come home that I am just like mentally exhausted because it is a lot to deal with. But, you know, I'm curious to hear what other people's struggles have been, but I'm happy to be here and I appreciate the support. It's just wonderful to know that I'm not alone in the struggle. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you very much. I think this is a problem that we've all dealt with during the pandemic, especially the mask in the doctor's office. And I myself have found the same thing, that if you ask, also as you did in the restaurant, it's really amazing how often somebody will say, well, sure, happy to do that. And I do find in doctor's offices, if I keep my mask on, they're more willing to take their mask off. And as I see Nancy Cullen has said in the chat, exhaustion is part and parcel of hearing loss. So Ruth?
Want to congratulate Rosalie for speaking up and tell her to take a look at the Center for Hearing and Communication website. They have all kinds of instructions on how to deal with being with masks, and they're very good. So it's a good thing to look at.
And that takes me to a question that someone submitted in advance that I actually asked David to put it on the answer on the chat. Somebody asked me in advance where outside of our HLAA meetings they can get information on hearing loss and on the kinds of things that we deal with. And so I gave David, and I can send it out to everybody. We might send this out as a blast, but several blogs that are devoted to hearing loss, several websites that are devoted to different aspects of hearing loss, the Center for Hearing and Communication, and their various in-person and online offerings. So David, do we have that? Do you have that? Can you put that on the chat?
Oh, let me see if I can dig it up. These are
Oh, well,
the,
never mind. It's okay.
these are the links you sent me.
Just put it up because I think it's also got a lot of links in it. And so I think people will want to get it in a way that they can just click on the links to see.
Right. The links didn't work through the chat. I can format
Okay.
something new. I'll go do that.
Okay. In that
Okay.
case, I think what we'll do is we'll send out a blast with the answer to that question, because I think a lot of people probably would like to know, other sources of information, and HLA themselves has some good sources of information. There are a lot of good Facebook pages for people who are on Facebook. So yeah. Al, would you unmute yourself?
Can you hear me all right?
Yeah. Yes.
Thank you, everyone, for letting me speak. I just wanted to provide two suggestions for Rosalia and anyone else who might find this helpful. I haven't been to the doctor yet, but I have with me a clear mask that I would carry with me for something more close setting, like a doctor. And you can get this on Amazon. It's self-sealed and it's clear. So if you need to read lips, you can ask the doctor to wear this mask instead of the closed mask if he or she, wants to wear the mask for safety reason. So that's one suggestion. The other suggestion, which actually I have to credit Catherine with this because I actually use it a lot, which is to use a plotter. Like when I go to the bank or Home Depot or whomever, if they wear a mask and I can't read their lips, then I would pick up my phone, open up the Otter app, and hit the transcribe button and just let the guy or her talk to Otter, and I read that. Now, I respect their desire to keep the mask on for safety, so I totally get that. If you don't use Otter, I have an iPhone. iPhone came out a few months ago with something called Live Caption, which is very similar to Otter. It's got a lot of bugs to it, though, so I wish we could somehow tell them that, but it's in beta testing. But I just wanted to pass along those 3 suggestions if you may find them helpful. That's all.
Thank you. And I just want to add to that. Otter is an iPhone app. It's free. You get it at the App Store on your phone and download it. It also creates a transcript of the meeting. And I have found that extremely useful at doctor's appointments to be able to look back and see exactly what it was the doctor said, because I tend to forget the minute I walk out. If you have an Android phone, there is an app called Google Live Transcribe, which is also very good. And they're both very, very accurate. It's I think it's a life changer to have these 2 iPhone apps. And I also would say, if anyone is not familiar with the InnoCaption app, which is for iPhones and Androids, that's also a free app available, and it's for phone calls, and it has live transcribers and sometimes automatic speech recognition, but it tends also to be very accurate. So I think we have modes of communication that we never did before, and that's good. So thank you, Al, for bringing that up. Tracy?
There, now I'm unmuted. Thank you very much. I'm one of those people who find these presentations very, very helpful. I live in Eastern Washington, and frequently information for the hearing impaired is sparse. I live in an extremely rural area on a large conservation easement. I had 2-3 years ago sudden onset sensorineural hearing loss, complete hearing loss on one side. I wear Bicross Oticon with help from an Oticon Connect clip. And I find that very helpful with a good dose of humor and a very supportive family. My biggest challenge is directionality. I live on a conservation easement, so my husband and I frequently, we are in the largest North American migration for waterfowl, and we try to keep abreast of geese migrations, turkey migrations, duck migrations. And I mean, it's sort of a sense of humor of, you know, I heard the turkey to my left, but in fact, my husband will very sweetly remind me that it's behind me or to the right. So, I mean, it's a never ending situation, but where it's more serious is in parking lots. I now grocery shop at 6 o'clock in the morning where I can park up front, because walking through moving cars in a parking lot is actually quite fearful. I'd say the unexpected rewards, I've had 2. When I lost my hearing, I developed musical tinnitus, which unfortunately I've pretty much lost over time, but it was quite beautiful for quite some time. And the second unexpected reward is I had to be under general anesthesia for a surgical procedure. And, you know, I dutifully handed over my lifeline, which was my hearing aids, right before I went to sleep. And the anesthesiologist was considerate enough and humane enough and thoughtful enough. And I found out it was the anesthesiologist who put my hearing aids back in just before I woke up. And that was the most unexpected, delightful, you know, you're in a strange environment, you're waking up from a very weird experience like general anesthesia, and to have someone think to do that was just wonderful. And I also want to thank this group for opening up this information, the speakers, the camaraderie. I've found it extremely helpful. So thank you.
Thank you for joining us all the way from Eastern Washington. I have a
It's
question.
just a few electrons. Yeah.
I have a question for you. Is your audiologist in easy driving distance, or do you have telehealth appointments?
This is a very mixed issue.
Oh.
I'm actually in the middle of nowhere. Our nearest neighbor is a half a mile away. However, I have great communication because I have a cell tower not that far away. And so, yes, I definitely do telehealth. But the sad thing is that although my audiologist is only 20 minutes away, my audiologist, I didn't realize, was a junior college degree educated audiologist, which most of the audiologists in this area are. Delightful people, really delightful, sweet, caring people, but did not have the understanding equivalent to a doctor of audiology, a much more intensive background that I could find in Seattle or when I visit family down in the Northern California area. So that's, if I were to get a cochlear implant, which is something I'm considering, it would be Seattle or Northern California, not this area. Go ahead.
No, you don't want a junior college ENT putting your cochlear
Well,
implants.
no, this was audiologist, but yeah, if you're doing a cochlear implant, you're working very intimately with an audiologist. And as I said, delightful, wonderful people, but not with I had no idea that there was this discontinuity.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you have good hearing aids. So.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Tony.
Yes, I'd just like to comment a little bit on the healthcare issue that everyone seems to be bringing up because it is so critical. I just want to make sure that everyone knows that you have a legal right to whatever communication will help you to communicate effectively with your doctor. And not only does that go for the patient with hearing loss, but it goes for a companion, a friend, a spouse of someone with hearing loss. Or if that person has hearing loss, they're also entitled to whatever accommodations they need. And there are many options that work, including voice recognition, although sometimes you've got to log into internet. But you should also know that you have every right to request CART, which is what Lauren Schuchter, our transcriber, is doing for us right now. And CART can be done either live with the transcriber sitting next to you in a hospital, or they can be done, it can be done remotely, whereas Lauren is wherever she is right now, and she's still able to listen and to transcribe. When I got my cochlear implant 2 years ago, I requested CART not just pre-surgery, but also when I was activated. And everyone was a little surprised because I don't think anyone had asked before. But the reality is, because people just, providers, doctors aren't aware, I had to explain to them, I'm getting a cochlear implant because I'm deaf, because I can't hear anything you're saying. So it really makes sense for me to have someone transcribing. And it just made those millions of questions that they ask before you go into the OR, it made it so much less stressful. And also when you're activated for an implant, it's a long, stressful process. Even when you go to your audiologist, you're there because you have difficulty hearing. You can ask for CART then. We sort of think like we have to be able to handle everything, but that's not the nature of hearing loss, especially in a medical situation. And the way that we will get hospitals to start providing those accommodations consistently, that will only happen if you ask. And in my work with hospitals, people are not asking. So you are helping yourselves and everyone else to speak up in a hospital and pleasantly let doctors know it's in their best interest to be able to hear, for you to be able to hear and not mishear medications, instructions, and everything. So you'll all be doing something wonderful for everyone if you speak up and you ask for the accommodations you need. Thanks.
Thanks, Tony. Tony has done amazing work educating hospitals, but there's a lot further to go. Tony, I have one question about that.
Could I ask, can help?
Sorry?
I'm sorry. I don't know how to put the hand up to raise my hand.
Go down to the bottom of the screen, pull your cursor all the way down.
Yeah,
And you'll see reactions.
yeah.
And click on that, click on the word reactions, and it will show
Thank
you
you.
the hand raised. And then also to lower your hand there.
Sorry to interrupt. Thank you.
Okay, Tony, what I wanted to ask you about hospitals and doctors is my audiologist's office has a kind of robot that has, it's a translation robot, and it's, I think, designed for interpreters for foreign languages, for families that don't speak English. I think you can also get an ASL interpreter on that little robot. It's a live screen. Are you familiar with that? And can you get CART through that?
You could get an ASL interpreter. It's called, I think it's called VRI, video relay, something, I forget. And they'll wheel a little screen into your room and the interpreter will be right there with you. I also just want to mention that at one point, a loved one was having surgery and Lauren Schechter, our CART transcriber again tonight, was sitting next to me in that hospital when this person, before they had surgery, when the doctor came and told me what was going on, when I saw this person after surgery, and just imagine how much that puts you at ease and how much better everyone's care is going to be if you ask for that.
Yes, we have to always ask everywhere we go.
Did you ask me something else, Catherine, besides the
No,
video?
well, I did. I asked if I forget what the name of it is already, the BRI, whether it can also display CART captions, remote CART captions.
When I have had remote CART captions, I've never had it on that same wheel-in screen that they use for sign language interpreters. We've either looked at it on the computer in the hospital, on an iPad from the hospital, or on my phone. I don't know, maybe Lauren Schechter can type in something if she has something to add to that.
I know it's hard for Lauren to type in while she's also doing CART. So we'll hear what she has to say about that afterwards. And Tony, one more question for you. I know sometimes, especially in the early days of the pandemic, there was some resistance to transcription apps in doctors' offices. And what are you seeing with that now? Are doctors basically now saying, yes, this is an, this is an ADA accommodation that they have to provide, and that there's not a privacy issue?
I think that providers, for the most part, are aware now that it's okay to use that accommodation. Before, it was a thing where they wanted you to use your own phone with your own app on it, rather than they're giving you one, because if there was a mistake with transcription and it was on my phone, I would be responsible. If it was on the hospital's phone, they would be responsible. But that seems to be dissipating at this point. And people are doing it more. We're actually, our communication access and healthcare program, which is part of HLAA and their national office, is actually going to be taking a little bit deeper dive on some of those voice recognition apps. So we'll be letting you know about that in the near future.
Okay, thanks. Holly's going to ask a question that someone emailed in who wished to remain anonymous. So Holly, if you do that.
Well, I'm going to share some of this email. The person shared that they had become increasingly conscious of my hearing loss as I began to attend movies in public libraries and senior centers, usually free and good choices of independent films, but they don't typically have audiological technology like movie theaters had. So she requested closed captions. This person wears 2 hearing aids. At the Jefferson Library, in the heart of what I thought of as progressive Brennan's Village, the facilitator just said no and hurried out. I subsequently sent an email to the director of the library noting it is a publicly supported facility and receives public money for funding. My request was honored and there were closed captions at future film events. So that was this person's experience at libraries, then went on to talk about at a senior center. So it says, however, my experiences requesting captions at a senior center were unpleasant. Another senior center used captions all the time until a participant who facilitates movie discussion asked to have them turned off. That facilitator said that she finds captions distracting and refused to lead discussions if captions were included in English films. This member was increasingly ill-informed about hearing problems and insensitive. He said that he saw me talk to others and couldn't accept that I had difficulty hearing. Some other participants said they also wanted captions and had been intimidated. One retired teacher shared she rarely attends films there anymore. So the director did not honor my clear request for captions. So this person finally complained, as this person wrote, to the Department of Aging, which gives funds and support to New York City senior centers, and the Department of Aging called the director. The liaison from the Department of Aging reported to me that the director denied he had refused to enable captions, but subsequently at film screenings announced he'd provide captions only if they were specifically requested. And I did request captions each time and got them for all. So the lesson, once again, how important it is to speak up and ask, because when we ask, people respond. To this person that shared our stories.
Wow.
Yes, this is a message we're hearing over and over again. Thanks, Holly. John?
Yeah, I also want to mention that the medical issue is an important one, but we can also request captioning, as this last person mentioned, in other situations. I've been going to movies, and I give Jerry Bergman a lot of credit for this, that I've been going to open caption movies, and you can locate them online at the movie theater websites, and that's been great for me. The other thing I do want to mention is a theater in Nyack, the Elmwood Playhouse. I went to a show there a few years ago. It was already looped. We were planning to go to a show there that's actually started already, and I asked them about the possibility of captioning, and they actually are going to get a live captioner. It'll probably be February 2nd. I will, when I have details, the final details, I will put them on Facebook. But they were very excited about doing it and are eager to do it on all their shows, and we're glad to have it brought up. So that was, I think, a big success.
Oh, that's great. I see Jerry's hand is up, but I'm going to say one thing I said I would say for him. He is doing, Jerry's really been the prime mover behind movie captioning with a few other people. He is interested in getting people's experiences now with caption movies, if you've been to them, if they've worked, if you would go back. And he asked me to give everybody his email address. So you can inundate him with your experiences. His email, and somebody can write this in the chat for me too, is JER Bergman, BERGMAN 1@me.com. So David's got that there in the captions. So thank you. That's good. Jerry, why don't we skip over the middle two people and you just speak for a few minutes about this if you need to. Say more. You're muted. You're muted, Jerry. Woo! You're still muted.
You're muted.
Now, yes. I continue to work on movie captioning. It's now the law in New York City, thanks to our efforts. And I've got a relationship with the attorney for the New York State division of the Theater Owners, Movie Theater Owners Association. He's very cooperative. all of the cinemas are required to post the notices of open captions on their websites. They don't do it in the newspapers because space is too limited. But if you find a movie playing for at least a week without open captions, pick up the phone, call 311 and report it. They will be fined and it won't happen again. That's my understanding. We'd like to spread this to other cities. So if anybody wants our resources, let me know if you'd like to try to get an ordinance in your area. Also, we're starting to work on courtroom accessibility. That's a very complicated subject, but if any of you would like to share your experience when you've been called for jury duty or you've had to go into a court, either as a witness or with a case in small claims court or something, please let me know, because this is something that our state association is working on. I'm the chair of the accessibility advocacy committee for the state. Thank you.
Thanks, Jerry. And I just want to answer, Al Chen put a question in the chat. Is it possible to require captioning on commercials? I assume you mean on television. And I don't know the answer to that. Jerry may.
The answer is no.
I would like to say
the answer
that,
is no. But
let me just say one thing. I just want to say that one of the things that we worked on over the past few years, Jerry and I together, was getting captioning at the Metropolitan Opera HD broadcasts in the movie theaters, which we both go to a lot. They didn't caption the intermission segments. But what happens now is that all of the sponsor ads are captioned. So now I know everything about Bloomberg, which is one of the big backers of the HD productions. And I think Bloomberg would be very glad to hear that. So I don't know about commercials on TV though.
I will defer to my friend Al Chen on captioning. He's a big proponent of captions, but you may have noticed on television commercials, they're sometimes captioned. That didn't used to be the case. So I think advertisers are getting more and more hip to the size of our hearing loss community and the added value of captions. They spend a lot of money. I come from the communications field. They spend a lot of money on their commercials. It would cost them pennies on the dollar to caption those commercials. So, you know, again, if you see something, say something, as New York City Transit likes to say. But yeah, it's not required by law. That's a private matter. Al, you want to add something?
Michelle Michaels put in the chat something about this. That's interesting. Commercials are not required to have captions, but if the commercial is created by a government agency, then they are required to have captions as a matter of ADA Title II law. So that's something to take into account. Thank you, Michelle, for that. Joan Daniels.
Hi, you were asking earlier about the challenges that we run into, and I personally was very resistant to getting hearing aid, and one of my friends kept after me. I've now had, I think, 6. I lost the first pair, which were okay, but not great. Went to Costco on a recommendation and got them, lost them because they were all tangled up in the mask and the glasses. And the next pair the same. Then I bought an over-the-counter because I thought, well, I'll just try that. And the background noise is just horrific. And now I've been diagnosed with a lung condition so that I have to continue wearing masks, KN95 masks. So I was hoping for some clue as to how to find a good set of hearing aids that hopefully I won't lose, but also that really improve the hearing experience. I've been to several doctors and I really felt like I was in a mill, you know, let's get you the most expensive thing we can. We're going to give you Bluetooth and 5 or 6 other things that I didn't understand, and you're good to go. So that's still a challenge for me, but finding this meeting is really encouraging because I've heard so many tips and good things just listening to this one meeting. So I'll be back, and that's very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you for speaking up. And I don't know where you live. I'm not sure if you're in New York, but
Manhattan.
some audiologists are definitely better than others. You know, if you're in the city, we basically recommend trying the hospital-based audiology departments, and also for the Center for Hearing and Communication, which has a very good audiology department.
And also, what was the last one?
Center for Hearing and Communication, CHC. Somebody can write that into the chat. It's really kind of an all-purpose hearing center. They sell hearing aids, hearing assistive devices. One of their the person who handles their hearing assistive devices is a board member of our chapter. I don't think he's here tonight, but they're very responsive to this kind of issue. So, and
Thank you.
also, you know, basically the hospital-based audiologists tend to be a little bit less, as you say, like a mill. So anyway, good luck.
Thank
It's
you.
hard. Okay. Peggy Ellertson here from New Orleans.
New Orleans.
Yeah.
My kitchen in New Orleans. It's great to see everybody.
I do.
Such a great meeting, such a great chapter. Hi, Jerry.
Okay.
So I think I do least well when I ask for people to do things and they won't do them. And I really have worked on this, and I try not to go down the rabbit hole, and I'm getting better at it, but I think I'm going to be working on it until the day I die. So one incident was a year and a half ago. I had an issue with arthritis, and I went to see an orthopedist at a major teaching hospital in Boston. And I took out my phone and I explained to her what I was going to be doing with captions, and she would not let me use it. And I was incredulous. I could not figure out what the problem was. I think that she was really worried that something was being recorded. She probably was also worried about patient privacy and HIPAA issues. But in any event, it's one incident in, you know, we all have had these situations, and I've been fortunate to be able to work with Tony somewhat. Tony is the champion in this field, and I'm learning so much from her. One of the things that we're doing is we're starting to understand just how complex the medical system is, and importantly, how absent the preparation of people with disabilities is in the training of medical personnel. I think it's a very key issue, and I think that in some ways, the providers are as hamstrung as we can be when we don't get accommodations. So I'm just going to make a quick pitch for an article that's coming out in Hearing Life magazine in the winter 23 issue. It is a terrific article by Carol Haywood, who was a public health researcher. And she does a lot of work looking at, she does a lot of research on the preparation of medical personnel for the care of people with disabilities. It's a beautiful article, and there is a short narrative that was written by Zina Jawadi, who's an HLAA board member and a medical student. It's a great pair of pieces, and I hope you all have a chance to read them.
Thank you. Carol CJ.
Hi, I'm talking to you from San Francisco, where it is not raining. Thank you for those cheers. It's been another trip. I have found, someone told me that persistence can be a learning disorder. I'm not sure exactly where they put it, and I seem to have it. And it's very useful when it comes to getting accommodations. I just don't go away. I might go away, but then I'll call you back tomorrow. And I have struggled with my local senior center and the local gay lesbian center. And earlier in the pandemic, it took as long as 1.5 years to get them on board and do captioning. But now they're very righteous that they do that for all their meetings. And it's like, that's a big success, but persistence. Someone talked about medical Zoom and or medical access. I have found that Zooming, asking for Zoom or online video accommodation gets me better communication than I can get live, and that I can see their lips and hearing and get some captioning. And I often say, I'm happy to set up the Zoom. I will send you a link. And my primary care physician has gone from not really wanting to put that thing around her neck, the microphone, so I can hear her live, to saying, wow, this Zoom thing, this really works. This is much easier. And she's become an advocate in her office to get others to use it. So that's persistence number 2. One thing I've done that works really well is just hang out and wait for some younger people. In the same offices where people were going, HIPAA recording, captioning on your phone, like I am a spy looking for a chance to catch them in a misstatement, and I'll have the recording all ready to take them down. It's like, no, I want to hear. And in some of those same offices, a next generation of, pardon my saying this, kids fresh out of medical school or training, I'll offer them my mic and they go, oh, cool. How does this work? What does that do? Oh, I have an uncle who can't hear me. Can I get one for my uncle? So young people are all into all kinds of devices, and it can be fun for them. It's like, okay, you have fun. I get the accommodation. That works. The one I'm struggling with right now is it seems that all of the grief support groups use Microsoft Teams. And I have been trying to get some kind of support in 3 different such organizations that all use Microsoft Teams. And I'm willing to believe that it has captioning and that it works for many people. But on all 3 of these organizations, I can't get it onto my PC. It's like they say, oh no, you push this button and we go through the list of options it brings up, and it just does not have the caption thing. So I'm looking for someone who's had some experience with that situation, because I'm sure there's a setting somewhere, but the people who are counselors, they're not tech people, and they're not finding it. So that's one of my pressing questions. And if anyone has a clue, please stick it in the chat or speak up. I really appreciate this meeting.
I'm not familiar with that. And so if anyone does have information, the chat is a good place to put that. And one thing I do, Carol, is if I'm on a meeting where captions are not provided and I've forgotten to ask for them, I often put my phone next to the computer screen, turn to Otter, and Otter will do a pretty good job transcribing. Not nearly as good as having captions on the screen, but it's a fallback.
Yeah, the catch-22 is that I'm Bluetoothing the sound into my hearing aid, so there is no sound coming out of my computer.
Yeah, that's right. Anyway, thank you for that. And if anyone has information, please put that in the chat. Al? your hand is up. Is your hand still up or is your hand newly up?
Hi, Catherine. Yes, it's still up. Thanks for letting me speak again, if it's all right. The reason my hand was up
Go
was
ahead.
I just wanted, first of all, to say I love Joey's slogan, "Speak Up." So before there was a slogan when I first joined, "Get in the Loop," and I think "Speak Up" is a great slogan going forward. Just something for HLAA to consider. Since we're all talking about self-advocacy, it's a great slogan. I love it. Speak up. The second question, the second reason I raised my hand was because Jerry had asked about some anyone with experience with telejuries, and I just wanted to let everybody know. Last year, I was part of the Exeter County of New Jersey's first telejury selection process. They had over 400 people on Zoom, and it was a very, very challenging process because it was the first time they were doing something like this. And I learned two things that everyone should keep in mind if you get selected for a telejury process. The first is when you request your accommodation, you must make sure that the assigned stenographer for you has direct access to the jury manager. Because what happened was when they first log you on, I am in a completely different jury room from my stenographer. So whatever the jury manager was calling your name and asking questions, I couldn't understand a single thing. So it's very, very important that, and I actually had my stenographer's personal cell phone number, so I can text her and say, look, I can't see you, I can't find you, I have no idea what's going on. And she would personally call the jury manager at that point in time, say, hey, you gotta put me in with Al Chen. So that took a little while to happen. And don't worry if they don't do it right away, because at the very end, when they say, did I miss anybody? That's when you can finally get together and explain what happened. But that's not the end of it. The second thing is that after everyone says the yes or no, what happens during a giant 400 jury selection process, but then they break you up into groups. So there could be 10 smaller groups of 40 or something like that. And you have to make sure your stenographer goes with you. So when this goes back to the first point, is to make sure your jury stenographer has direct access to jury manager. Because I went to room B and she went to room F and we got disconnected yet again. So it's important for anyone who's getting involved in telejury. The most important thing is to make sure that you have direct access to your jury stenographer, with the personal text message in case they don't do it right. And secondly, that the stenographer has direct access to the jury manager. So that way, if you end up in different rooms, they can talk to each other and pair you back up together. That's all I wanted to say. I hope that was helpful.
Thank you. I'm really struck by Al, what you were saying, but also the whole discussion here about how different life is for people with hearing loss now than I would say than it was even 5 years ago. It's really astonishing, that we're on the forefront of it. We're right up there, all of us, relatively not exactly young people for the most part. We're the people who are pushing this technology, and we're the people who are making the world accessible. It's really great. I mean, I'm really struck here by what people have been saying on, all different fields, juries, medicine, so on. So it's great. John, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment, Joan Daniel spoke before about having all kinds of trouble with her hearing aids. And the comment I would like to make is that the relationship with an audiologist is a two-way street. that we shouldn't be just sitting there waiting for the audiologist to give us what we need, because they can't really do that if we don't communicate with them. If you get a pair of hearing aids and you're not happy with it, let them know what it is that you're unhappy with. I very rarely have had a pair of hearing aids that I was happy with out of the box. I had to go to the audiologist and ask for tweaks, explain the situations where it wasn't working well, what was wrong with the sound. Some of you have heard me talk about my father. I took him to an audiologist at the end of his life, and when he was quite deaf, and he would say to the audiologist, "I don't like the hearing aid," and the audiologist would say, "What don't you like?" He'd say, "I don't like the sound." Well, that doesn't tell the audiologist anything they can work with. But if you explain to the audiologist what the problems are, then maybe they can fix it. And if the audiologist isn't willing to do that, then find a different audiologist. Part of the reason hearing aids are so expensive is you're paying for that service from the audiologist. So don't be shy about it. It's just another case where you need to be assertive. So that's my comment.
I would add, John, also that sometimes you do need a different hearing aid. Sometimes, the brand makes a difference. I have 2 fairly new hearing aids for reasons that I won't go into. And I feel like I hear much better with one of them than with the other. And last time I went to the audiologist, she tested me very extensively with both of them. And she said, on the hearing tests, I do equally well with both of them. But my own individual perspective is that I do much better with one of them than the other. So there's just it really is an individual and sometimes immeasurable difference. So a lot of times what you need to do is just have the audiologist try a different brand. If you've been using Widex, try an Oticon. If you've been using, Starkey, try Phonak. I always go through 2 or 3 brands when I get new. But I was very interested by when she did that testing. So, Holly?
That's quite true. If I'm just going to finish something, some people ask me, what is the best hearing aid? And there isn't a best hearing aid. It's the one that works best for you. And there are many different brands and many different models, and audiologists may know one brand and one model better than another. You have to convey to them what your issues are with it. So, okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I want to add, John, I've also been asked that question, and I give the same response. I just wanted to add that I did just get new hearing aids after 5 years, and the pleasant surprise has been, number one, I know we don't talk about the different programs that hearing aids had. For the most part, I've used over the years just the general program, which is, everywhere, and then changed to T-coil when I'm in a looped environment. I'm using for the first time one of the programs that's called Speech in Noise. And what I've noticed is that when I'm in a restaurant, a noisy restaurant, talking to someone across the table, I turn the speech in noise on. It kind of tamps down the background noise that I can hear the person in front of me much better. And then the other huge surprise is being able to hear in back of me at times. I have never, ever heard anyone in back of me. And the people will tap my shoulder if I'm on the street to want me to move over. And I'll always say, I have hearing loss. I didn't notice. I'm hearing that. I'm not saying I'm hearing speech necessarily, but even just knowing that. So I think my only point in saying this is that, again, how hearing aids continue to improve. Evidently, I wear Oticon. These hearing aids evidently are 2 generations ahead of what I had. But I absolutely feel like I'm hearing more crisper and in other situations. So the technology keeps getting better. We're so fortunate.
I'm going to skip over Jerry and Ruth for a minute because you've both spoken, and go to Ellen. Let Ellen Semmel speak next.
I wanted to go back to the very beginning when we were talking about the clear masks and make another suggestion that really was helpful to me. I wrote to my doctor, my primary doctor, to ask if she and her staff would consider getting a supply of the masks with the, the plastic, so that she could use that when I come and I could hear her better. And that's worked out very well. So I just wanted to suggest that to people. You can actually suggest to your doctor or write to your doctor and give the doctor the information about specific clear masks. I think the one that they used when I was just at CHC was called HU mask, like HUMASK. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you. And this is
Okay, so now I'm going to go back around, Jerry. You're muted, Jerry.
Just reacting to a couple of things. First, the loss of hearing aids from wearing masks. I found that you can order online masks that don't go behind the ear, but go all the way around your head. And the bottom one I put behind my neck, and the top one I put up on top of my bald head. And in that way, it doesn't interfere either with my glasses being knocked off or my hearing devices. So I wanted to mention that. And on Holly's excellent comments about the advantages of full-scale, more expensive hearing aids, cochlear implants, and the programs they offer. I got new cochlear implants about 2 years ago now, and the Bluetooth function enables me to hear on the telephone as never before. So, and I was using a Bluetooth transmitter before that, and it was very clunky and it would not work well. So if you get new hearing aids, make sure you have Bluetooth as well as telecoil in them. That's my suggestion.
Jerry, I'm surprised that you didn't add to make sure that you get, I mean, to put more emphasis on the telecoil, because I think that a lot of audiologists are now kind of dismissing that and saying, oh, you know, the telecoil and hearing loops are old technology. What you really need is Bluetooth. And I think most of us know that the telecoil comes in really handy, and that you really do sometimes have to ask your
Catherine, you bring up an important point. Bluetooth is only useful for distance up to 30 feet from the source. Bluetooth currently, despite rumors that have gone around, is not accessible to us for large area listening systems in the same way that telecoils and hearing loops are, and other types of assistive devices. So that's the reality. And all the manufacturers still offer hearing aids with telecoils, but like we've been stressing, you have to ask, does this have a telecoil? And you have to know that you have a telecoil and then it's been turned on by the audiologist. Otherwise, even if you have it, it won't work. So there are a lot of people walking around with T-coils who don't even know they have them or where and how to use them.
Thank you. Ruth.
I just want everybody to know that I wrote an article in the December Buzz called "Give Our Hearing Loss Community a Gift, Be Visible." And you'll find it out, right? And basically what it says is that you need to speak up. And somebody just wrote, what gives us the confidence to keep asking? The fact that we help ourselves and we help the hearing loss community. And even when it doesn't work, we're educating people who have no idea what all the help we can get. So just keep talking, Kate. It's worthwhile.
Thank you. Kate Keffeler, who was our speaker last month, ran a really fascinating panel discussion about musicians with hearing loss. I think Ruth, I'm not sure whether you saw her comment, you were answering that, but she said she's curious about how people maintain their confidence to keep speaking up and to keep persevering in the face of difficult situations. I would like to say that for me, that's something that I have learned from my colleagues in the New York City chapter. And I think that message has been repeated over and over and over again tonight. You know, as Ruth just said, you help not just yourself, but you help all of us. So anyway, thank you for saying that, Ruth. Nancy?
Yeah, I just want to comment a couple of things on the T-coil. So when I first got hearing aids, I guess 10 or 11 years ago, I demoed ReSound and Oticon, and I found ReSound to be more authentic to my hearing than Oticon. So I went with the ReSound, and my first pair have lasted all this time. They had a T-coil. I thought I was doing very well with them. And I decided, I think it's time to get new hearing aids before these break, because they're well past the expiration point. So I recently got new hearing aids, and I trusted my audiologist, and she suggested I try Oticon. So you have 40 or 45 days to test out. I figured that would be enough time for me to see if these were going to be good enough for me. And I have to say, technology has advanced so much. I am hearing so much better. And the reason why I couldn't get ReSound is no longer making hearing aids with T-coils. So it's not just the audiologists that are not supplying it or putting it in or turning it on or whatever they do with it. ReSound was not making it anymore. So I had to go to another manufacturer. But Holly mentioned hearing and back. And my audiologist wanted to make sure that I'm walking the streets of New York and stay off my corners. But I'm out there and I don't hear what's going on in back of me. But now I'm hearing too much of what's going on in back of me and the side of me and in front of me. But I'm not complaining, because I just love these hearing aids. I don't think they're made as well as my ReSound. I really doubt they're going to last me 10 years. They're delicate, but I didn't even have to pay for the top line, because my hearing is not bad as some people. So I'm able to get the midline, and you know, in 6 months, something else is going to come out. So you have to stay up with the technology.
ReSound is still making hearing aids with T-coils.
Not the ones that would work for me.
Well, that may be something that your audiologist has to work around, but ReSound is committed to T-coils.
Okay, well, maybe they weren't making it to the level of hearing loss that I have.
Well, for a while, initially, they weren't putting telecoils in the ones with rechargeable batteries, only the ones with the batteries you had to replace. But I don't believe that's the case anymore. But your brand, your particular model, I can't speak to.
Thanks, Nancy. Arlene?
Hi, everybody. I'm talking to you from New Jersey. We have a very active HLAA chapters and state association. I just wanted to comment on some things that were said from the first person who was surprised that her hearing aid was put back after her surgery. Well, that's a perfect example of where the person who is using a hearing aid and has to relinquish it should arrange with whoever is in charge and the recovery room to put it back. And I had that experience a few times with my cochlear implant surgery, that I had an ear that had an implant already. And I said, we need to have that cochlear implant put back in recovery so I can hear when I wake up. and it was there. So it doesn't have to be by fortuitous chance. You speak up for yourself. The other thing is, in New Jersey, we are looping more locations. I just wanted to put that on the radar. And so T-coils are getting more attention. So that's on the horizon in New Jersey. We're just over the bridge. So it's not like we're a foreign country. So that's hopefully get more attention to T-coils, and our audiologists and professionals are very much behind that. So that's what we're looking forward to this year. As far as speaking up, in my advocacy, I had just a very simple way to express what you want to do. And I would say, this is what I need. This is why I need it. This is what happens when I get it. And this is what happens if I don't. So if you feel that you're tongue-tied, that you don't know how to say this, just 4 things. This is what I need. So you need whatever you want from the doctor or whatever. This is why I need it. It really helps in my communication, and this is what happens when I get it, euphoria, and I'm able to function competently. This is what happens if I don't, then I will just be clueless and everybody will be frustrated. It'll be a failure. So 1, 2, 3, 4, there you go. For everybody who is wondering, how am I going to speak up? That's your prescription. 1, 2, 3, 4, and anybody can say that, and it works everywhere, even in the auto repair, and you're waiting in the waiting room and telling them to get you in the waiting room. So when your car is ready, this is why I need you to do it, etc., etc. So you get the picture. So I hope that's helpful.
Thank you. I want to say something about loops in New York City. This city has actually been pretty busy during the pandemic. I forgot what year it was, but a few years ago, Mayor de Blasio signed into law a bill that required that new construction and reconstruction over $1 million had to include a one looped meeting space in city buildings, one loop meeting space. And we're in the process of revising the list we have on our website of local New York City looped venues. And we've added quite a few because of the city initiative, the city law that was passed. And again, that was as a result of advocacy by our chapter. And I think outside of the law, or at least outside of city law, there's also a whole lot more loops being installed right now. I'm trying to get that list up in the next few weeks because it's really, it's a good new list. It's good. So Rosalia, did you want to say something else?
Yes, I wanted to know if anyone can give me any information on an accessory. It's called a remote microphone plus. I heard it in this meeting in the past, and I've never, I don't have one. I don't know what it is. And I did some research, and what I'm looking to know if anyone has one, and if the primary use of this remote microphone is, so if you go to a restaurant, from what I understand, if you put this accessory on the table, whoever's talking to you will stream right to your hearing aid. So it's like a Bluetooth connection. And I would totally benefit from this because I find that I love the Bluetooth. Everything, I take all my calls through the Bluetooth on my phone. I have the iPad through the Bluetooth. I actually got rid of my landline because I can't hear on the landline with the hearing aid. So if anyone has any information on this remote microphone and what it's used for, I would really appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm not sure. You sounds like you're thinking there's a universal remote mic. I don't think there is. I think they're mostly this brand of your hearing aid. That's the remote mic that is available to work with your hearing aid. If anyone knows something different, For instance, I have a phonak, and my remote mic, which I use a lot, is a phonak remote mic, and it transmits the sound to my hearing aid and to my advanced bionics cochlear implant.
Catherine, I can address Rosalie's question. Rosalie, I sent you my email address. If you send me what you know about the product you were asking about, I will get back to you. We represent a huge market. Never has there been as much interest in pushing commercial products out on us as there is currently, in part because of the advent of over-the-counter hearing aids and the extensive marketing that's being done. But there's also a lot of technology that's being developed all the time. What Catherine spoke about is a very tried and true approach. Most of the major hearing aid brands will sell you an auxiliary microphone. So if you're in a social setting, you can walk around and point it at people or put it near their mouths, and you will hear in noise much better than you otherwise could, or when you're dining in a noisy restaurant. But beyond that, there's lots of stuff out there, and you have to be careful.
I think we can't possibly cover this whole issue. So I would like to give Steve S., I don't see what your last name is, but a chance to speak. So.
Someone from Pennsylvania. As New York goes, the nation goes, it seems. Open captioning is catching on in Pennsylvania somewhat, and Delaware passed a law, but it's only a 1-year trial. My wife's well-versed on all this, but it's interesting that this open captioning is actually kind of spreading all on its own, although we're trying to do what we can. And as the theaters also, several years ago, as New York's theaters all got loops and our caption glasses and things like that, we noticed that the theaters in Philadelphia kind of caught notice and started putting a lot of different captioning glasses and stuff installed. So it's really cool. Thank you.
Well, thank you for mentioning that. Peggy, and then I think after that, we have to kind of wind up this discussion. But Peggy, go ahead.
I'm always surprised when a person has gotten hearing aids and doesn't know about a remote mic. I think a mic, an external mic, can be a real key to unlocking a lot of situations. I have a phonak, Roger pen, and an embarrassing fleet of little mics that are Roger mics. They can be used simultaneously, so you can have more than one person in your conversation, and they can be used with any kind of hearing aid. You have to have receivers on your hearing aid, which requires a special boot to accommodate the receivers. So I know that at least the old Rogers are universal, and they're unique in that you can use more than one at the same time.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. This has been really a fantastic conversation. I'm going to just ask John to tell us about our next meeting.
Just getting a
Tuesday in
email
February.
here. Wait.
Actually, I think we should ask David about the next meeting. He's the speaker at the next meeting, and it's a talk that he's given before in other locations, and it's fabulous. So maybe David can say something about it. It will be February 21st, I believe.
Okay. David,
Okay.
you want to give us a preview?
Sure, I'll start. No. So I've been asked to give a talk on the history of cochlear implants. I wasn't there when they began, but I've been fortunate enough to have known many of the early players and listened to their stories. And so I was going to talk a little bit about the early days of the cochlear implant, where it came from, how it was developed, who the pioneers were. These are both the clinicians and the researchers, but it's also the initial patients who, you can imagine what a big deal it is to get a cochlear implant today. Today, you can go and you can ask the manufacturer, well, what are the specs? Or you can ask another person who has one, well, what was the experience like? In those days, it was, I don't know how to work. There's no company. We want to try it? Sure, put it in me. Let's see how it goes. So this is what I'm going to talk about. And
Oh, good. Okay. Well, this sounds good. I want to especially thank Lauren tonight, Lauren Schechter, our CART provider, because we've had a lot of different voices here and the captions have been so accurate. Thank you so much, Lauren. And I hope to see all of you. We're really delighted to have so many people from all over the country. It's something we never could have done without COVID. So there you go. That's one of the, that's the bright side of pandemic. And we didn't get to talking exactly about what the good experiences are that we've had that have been a result of our hearing loss. But I think the conversation itself and all the information we've shared is answers that. So thank you, everybody. See you in February. And thanks everybody for speaking up. Okay, bye-bye.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.